Good evening. Everybody hear me okay? Well, I'm your first presenter tonight, and I am already going to ask you to be interactive. So, if you will, close your eyes. I would like you to visualize a home. And in this home, there are two people. Two hardworking people. They came here from Italy as young children. They grew up, and now they were raising a family of their own. If you're old enough, bring in the sounds and sights of the year 1969. Tumultuous time, passionate time, phenomenal music. It was the Vietnam War. It was a time of war, and it was a time of struggling for peace. Add to the picture a 17-year-old girl who wanted nothing more than to embrace this American heritage, who wanted nothing more than to be free and feel free. What kind of emotion, when you put all that together, comes to your mind? Open your eyes. My name is Diane Catrambone, and I was that 17-year-old girl. I don't know when I decided to take the road less traveled. I knew by the time I was 10, the Catholic religion had become more of a conflict than a comfort to me. I knew at an early age that I was going to have to make decisions about who I was going to surround my life with. My mom would say to me, "You can't trust your friends. Your friends are never going to tell you when your face is dirty. You can only trust your family." A little bit of a problem, since my family wanted me to be invisible. My friends thought I was friendly and cute and funny. So I did what any good Italian girl would do. I got married at 18. 5 years later, I got a divorce. I had this great apartment. I was well on my way to my life's journey. I was working corporate during that time, and I stayed working corporate, and during that time I met the most incredible friends that had been with me 30 years plus and still are with me today. And I think to myself sometimes, if my mom hadn't have said those words, if she hadn't made me angry with those words, would I have become the kind of person that was open and loving and willing to let people in, not really knowing what was going to happen? I don't know, but I do know that when you keep yourself aware, there are lessons to be learned at every corner. So I met my second and present husband. We had a baby. Her name is Shannon. And we decided that I was going to stay home. It was tough, a decision to make. Money was not easy to come by. But I embraced that role, and I went to work part-time doing aerobics instructor, and then I became a personal trainer. And then I started my first business, which was in-home personal training, which I did whenever I could. And then I was able to realize my dream of opening a personal training studio. The day I was to put pen to paper and sign my lease was September 11th, 2001. So I said to myself, wait, maybe I should sit back a little bit. But then I thought, I made my fantasy a reality by hard work, and I'll be darned if anybody was going to take that from me. For those of you who can get this reference, nobody puts Diane in the corner. So I bolted out of the gate. I ramped up my business. I was in the black 3 months in, and there I remained until I sold the business in late 2007. So I sold my business. A week later, my daughter goes to college. And I said, whoa, maybe there's some more bad timing here. I went from being really busy to having not much to do, but that's okay, because that's the way my life has been. My life has been a series of meanderings. And I think to myself, I've always been true to my values, and they've always led me down a path that made sense, just to me, maybe not to other people. There's a quote by Harry Nielsen, "You don't have to have a point to have a point, dig?" And that's the way my life has been. And so I stand before you today, a woman who lives in joy and curiosity. This past Christmas, I made these mala beads. These are Buddhist beads. And I was making them, and I was thinking, what do these beads remind me of? And then I looked at them, and I thought, oh my gosh, they remind me of a rosary bead. And I laughed, and I thought, I've traveled so far to come home again. I have been able to let go of what does not serve me in this lifetime and hold on to the culture and heritage that makes me so happy. So think about a home. And in that home, there are two hardworking people. Time is now. Add a 21-year-old daughter. We have a home that's open for new ideas, open for opportunities. Shannon is not afraid to share her ideas with us. Shannon welcomes the idea of arguing her ideas with us. We respect her as deeply as she respects us. And for that, I am forever grateful. The cycle has been broken. That is my legacy.
You guys hear me good, right? Awesome. Okay. All right, everybody close your eyes. No, just kidding. Somebody already did that. So I could pretty much wrap up my childhood pretty well in one word: normal. Now, I know that that is a very subjective word, and there's really no such thing as normal, but it was. I mean, I rode around the neighborhood on my bike, pretending I was a detective. I was super joyous. My parents got along well. No major dramas in the family. No crazy characters, although I'm probably filling those shoes quite well. No, I was jubilant Julie. I loved life. So maybe that is why my ascent into adulthood has been rather difficult. So adulthood, 18 years old, right? Freshman year in college, wake up one morning and go for a full body stretch, and pop! Something in my neck had popped, and it burned, and I couldn't move my neck. So I went to the chiropractor, and he was like, every muscle is in a knot. So he sent me to a massage therapist, and she worked on me, and then he said he'd look at me after that. So back to childhood, because that was much more fun. My mom would describe my grandmother, her mother-in-law, as a worrier. She would say that she worries about everything. And as a kid, I could not get that concept. I'm like, how could you possibly be worried about everything? That's so bizarre. Clearly something that only happens to old people. So back to 18 and, all those tight muscles. So I had to question, why were all my muscles so tight? Well, the answer was, because I was worried about everything. I had this thing happening. It's like, starts with an A, anxiety. Anybody ever heard of it? Yeah. So back to childhood again, because that's much more fun, right? I would go to the library with my mom, and I would make a beeline right for the scary books section. I liked anything that had to do with paranormal, hauntings, anything that couldn't be explained, which eventually evolved into a strong interest in spirituality and anything that had to do with life after death. What happens when we die? I didn't know why I was so interested in this stuff, but I was. I mean, obviously we're all going to die someday, so I knew I needed it, but I thought I was going to need it sooner. And so one morning, now my junior year of college, I wake up to a phone call, 7 in the morning, and it's my mom, and she calls to tell me that my brother had been in a car accident the night before, and he hadn't made it. Now I had something to worry about, but I was going to be strong. So I powered through my term in school with subpar grades, and then I powered through my term off where I was going to heal. 4 months of healing, a couple yoga classes, that was going to be fine. And of course, I ended up a couple months later in my doctor's office with anxiety and depression. So I went on some drugs, and they worked. I got through school, I got my first job, but then I wanted off. I didn't want that blocking me, whatever it was. I knew I needed to work through what I went through. So I won't bore you with a bunch of years of pretty much me going from job to job, moving here, moving there. I've been all over the country. I became a health coach, learned how to eat well. I became a yoga teacher, still trying to work on that whole mind thing. But I was able to get off the drugs. And I'll take you to this past summer. I was in Boulder, Colorado, one of the latest places I was finding myself. And I found myself in the room I was renting on the floor. And I was pleading. And I was saying, God, I need a break. I'm tired. I want to feel like I belong. I want to go somewhere every morning where they want me there. And you know what came to me in that moment? It was a phrase. And it said, you're all you have. And it wasn't in a scary way. It wasn't in a mean way. It was in a relieving way. I thought, yeah, I'm what I came with. I'm what I'm leaving with. I am all I have. And if I'm all I have, I better be my best friend. I had better be my biggest fan. Because you know what? I'm here. The fact that I'm right here, right now, that I exist, hello, I belong here. How profound, had to love myself. I decided in that moment, I have me. That's all I need. Everything else that comes after that is such a blessing. Thank you.
Eight candles flickered as the buttercream icing melted into the warm chocolate cake. "You can make a wish, Carolyn," said my mother, "but don't waste your wish on that, because you're not going to get it." She knew my wish, and I considered her advice. But there just wasn't anything else worth wishing for. As I blew out the candles, I wished for a horse. For as long as I can remember, besides my passion for riding, the concept of riding, because I didn't even ride, I've had two other passions. I've always loved animals and writing. In fact, I was going to be a poet when I grew up. This aspiration, however, wasn't met with a high degree of enthusiasm from my parents, who encouraged me to do something practical as well as the poet thing. So after we moved to the United States, I conquered a double major in English and economics. But when I graduated, I discovered economics wasn't practical either. After pursuing a couple of dead-end jobs, I realized I was never going to make the kind of money that I needed to do what I wanted to do, ride a horse. So I had to go back and get an MBA. So I got the MBA, and then I got this job in Cleveland in marketing, a nice job, small apartment, even taking a couple of riding lessons. But something was missing. A puppy. But the landlord didn't allow animals, so I realized I would have to get a kitten instead. And I realized technically a kitten is an animal too, but it is an easy-to-hide animal. I knew nothing about cats. The first night that I adopted Targa, his goal was to sleep beside me on my pillow. And as I got up every 10 minutes to dump him back in his fluffy little bed, I thought I had made a terrible mistake. I was never going to sleep again. And in the end, I gave up, and I let him sleep there. And he slept there for the next 12 years. And in the process, I became a confirmed cat lover. A few years after adopting Targa, I escaped from Cleveland. I found myself a job in Philadelphia, bought a condo in Bucks County, and here's the big news. When I was 30, I bought my first horse. He was a chestnut with a white blaze, and his brilliant talent for jumping was only equaled by his ability to buck, spook, and dump me. But I took my bruising gratefully. After 22 years, my dream had come true. Several years later, I lost that job in Philadelphia in 1997. But the job loss came with a sunshine moment. I was 38 years old, and I was beginning to think I was never going to meet a man who met my long list of specifications. But Mike and I connected at a ski club happy hour. We sat on the patio, we ate bruschetta, sipped on vodka Collins, and we talked and talked and talked until at some point he said something quite remarkable. He said, "I love cats." In 2000, we were married. I churned through the job mill for several years before landing as marketing manager for Kohler Company. You know, the toilet people. I loved their creativity with new product development, but what I didn't like so much was their endless need to crunch numbers. We sliced them, we diced them, and then on every whim of upper management, we re-sliced them and we re-diced them. Numbers danced in my brain, spreadsheets featured prominently in my dreams. I was working 50 to 70 hours a week just to try to conquer the workload. I was exhausted, I was burnt out, but I didn't have time to find the escape hatch. Luckily, in 2009, the human resources manager showed me the way out. Through the front door. Another layoff. Another sunshine moment. I was not going back to the corporate world. I was going to do what I love. I was going to write. So I formed Carolyn Frith Marketing, where I create clear, concise, compelling messages for direct mail, websites, brochures, and more. So I'm happily married. I have 4 cats. I have a horse to ride when I like, and I spend my days doing what I love.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. First of all, I just want to say that I am so honored to even be standing here tonight and sharing this space with all these women that have these amazing stories. And you've heard several, and you're going to hear more after me. And the beautiful thing of it all is that they are all different because we are all unique. We are all unique individuals, and we all have our own story to share in life. So I want to also thank Molly quickly, because I got to rush here, but quickly for my for saving me tons of money on therapy, for being able to create my legacy story, because in writing this story, I was able to see the panoramic view of my life. I was able to see how I was fueling the purpose for my passion as a small child, as a little girl, all the way to where I am right now, right here in front of all of you tonight. So when I was a little girl, I had a very active imagination, and I used this imaginary place to escape some dark things that were going on in my life, in my house when I was a child. And when I would escape to this place, it was a beautiful world, a beautiful world. And my Barbies, they had the best life in the entire world. Anybody would have loved to have been one of my Barbies, because not only did I design their clothes, which were fabulous, but I also designed their home, which I made out of a cardboard box, and it was fabulous. But I was also designing their life. You see, I wasn't just trying to make them beautiful. I was also trying to make their life beautiful. I was always creating a big event for them to go to, and they were always in deep celebration. They were always celebrating for each other and lifting each other up. So I always had this unique, intuitive ability to see beauty deeply, to understand what beauty was, not just in physical form, but in spirit. I understood that very intuitively as a really young girl. What I didn't know is that I was generating my ability for my gift. I had no idea. I was just escaping to this safe, beautiful world. So I took this first lesson. This is the first chapter of my life, and I carried that with me throughout growing up, and I was a very, very expressive teenager. I had no trouble expressing myself when most girls were dimming their light because they were uncomfortable or they just wanted to fit in. I was not. I was Madonna often. I was anything that I could do. Cyndi Lauper. I loved Cyndi Lauper. Girls just want to have fun. And I was always being a very, very creative expression of myself. So I used my beauty and my natural ability to create beauty and understand what positive energy was and create my life, myself. So when it came time to choose a career for myself, I chose a hairstylist, which was a perfect fit because I had a platform to show my ability. I had a platform to create beauty for women, but I also learned my biggest lesson while standing behind that chair. I got to see how women view themselves. And it's not pretty. Your hairdresser sees everything, and you all judge yourselves tremendously. And what I've learned from that, I carried through right to where I am today. And I'm going to fast forward and jump through motherhood, which was a big lesson in beauty. And I'm going to fast forward to where I am right now and how I'm using my gift and ability of understanding deep beauty. You see, you're all authentic and you're all unique, and you all carry this beauty inside of you that comes from here. Not from here, not from here, from here. This is where your true beauty comes from. It radiates from within. You see, there's billions of people on this planet, billions, but there's only one you. There's only one me, and there will never be another. So it is our purpose on this planet to live your life as a creative expression of your soul. This is your purpose, to step up and share your light with the world, because that is true beauty. That is what radiates, and that is what people will see. Your beauty will show up in your life. Thank you very much.
Sunshine Tour. My friend Chris Baeza, who's over here somewhere, invited me to come to this, and said, you've got to do this for your 52nd birthday. So you notice I'm wearing these wings. We're going to go on a magical journey, and we're going to do some time traveling. So can you all put your magical wings on with me, please? Okay. I don't know if you can see this here, but this was me at age 22, 30 years ago. And she and I often play this game called Things I Wish I Knew When I Was You. From an Outward Bound course. For those of you that don't know, Outward Bound is a wilderness survival course. I spent 10 days, and you think it's cold out here, I spent 10 days in New England, 40 below. I came home with a sprained pinky, frostbite on my fingers, sprained ankle, bruises on my hips from carrying a 50-pound pack, and bronchitis, and a boatload of wisdom. One of the most important, valuable pieces that I learned there came from one of the instructors. He called it, make a positive change. If things aren't working in your life, don't complain, don't whine, do something about it. If you're hot, put on a layer of clothes. If you're cold, take off a layer. If your socks are wet, change them. If you're hungry, eat. If you're tired, sleep. Simple as that. So I took that portable life skill back into my daily life. We're going to fast forward. The year is now 1986. And I was invited to go on a citizens diplomacy mission to what's now called Russia, but was then the Soviet Union. And the purpose of this trip was to connect with the Russian people so that they would understand that the Americans weren't the enemy. I was all prepared to go on this trip. It was scheduled October 12th through the 25th. I would have spent my 27th birthday in Russia. How cool would that have been? And then I heard a voice. Now, I'm a psychiatric social worker as my full-time salary and benefits gig. So I know the difference between psychotic voices and the voice for God. So God spoke, a gender-neutral voice, and said, no, you're not supposed to go to Philadelphia. You're not supposed to be in Russia. You're supposed to go to Philadelphia. And I said, but I don't live in Philadelphia. And the voice repeated, but I'm supposed to go to Russia and spend my 27th birthday there, the home of my ancestors. And the voice repeated. And I said, listen to me, I'm arguing with a disembodied voice. I'm not going to give up arguing until I say I'm canceling the trip. And God said, yep, you're right. I canceled the trip. Put the whole thing on the back burner. Fast forward again, October 24th. I go to Philadelphia to hear Ram Dass. Ram Dass is one of the most amazing spiritual teachers for those who know him, or don't know him, but I've never heard. During the intermission, a mutual friend named Uta Arnold introduced me to this red-haired, curly-haired, bearded, blue-eyed man. She said, Edie, this is Michael Moser, and he's someone you should know. Fast forward again, 1987, Michael and I get married. Fast forward again, 1988, we start Visions Magazine, which was, at the time, holistic, spiritual, transformational magazine. And it put me in touch with some of the most amazing movers and shakers in the transformational field ever. And it opened the door to me 2 years ago interviewing the Dalai Lama, which was beyond belief for me. So fast forward again. I'd forgotten a lot of what I learned at Outward Bound, which was don't be codependent, don't take care of people. Michael would say that I was like an emotional contortionist who bent over backwards to please people, and boy, was incredible. 1992 was what I lovingly call a year from hell. We adopted our special needs son, who's now 23. I had an ectopic pregnancy. Michael was diagnosed with hepatitis C. We lost our home in Hurricane Andrew, Homestead, Florida. I decided I had to be strong. And to me, strong meant big and strong. So I started gaining weight. And I didn't pay much attention to it. But then in 1998, I had my sunshine moment. Michael died. But before he died, I had another conversation with God. And said, he's mine and you can't have him. And God said, he's mine and he's on loan to you like everybody else in your life. That's carried me through the death of my father 3 years ago, the death of my mother, the day of Thanksgiving this year. She's here, by the way, my mom's here. Now I live as a bliss mistress, and I invite all of you to think about what would it be like to be the mistress or master of your own bliss. How would you live? How would you transform your life from where it is right now to where you want to be? So I encourage you, every moment, live passionately, love from here. Embrace everybody, knowing that everybody in your life is unknown to you. Now, just in case you're wondering what those feathers were on your seats, that's a reminder for you to keep your magical wings on. It's also a way of reminding you to lighten up and to tickle your fancy, whatever else you have in mind.
Thank you. Can you hear me now? Am I plugged in? Okay. Mamma mia cucina, a flavor of good food and good family. Mamma mia cucina translated, my mother's kitchen. This was a typical dinner in our home, my childhood home. It was the kitchen of not only my mother, my grandmother, my great-grandmother, the kitchen of each of my aunts, and my great-grandmother was a professional cook in Rome prior to coming to this country. And it's also the kitchen of my grandfather. His was in the garden. And he had a fabulous garden. And it was organic when no one knew the term organic. It just was. So everything was fresh. I learned techniques of canning, preserving. He made his homemade wine. We made the homemade pasta sauce. And, you know, when you come from an Italian family, it's all about the food. And in Philly, it's all about the gravy. So that gravy was awesome. And if you could just imagine this, every Sunday morning, I woke up to the aroma of that tomato gravy on the stove brewing, and it was brewing for hours, along with the coffee. And there was the clamor of dishes and people talking and truly connected to one another as a family as we shared our backyards. I have been so blessed with my grandparents growing up in my backyard. And as a little girl, I traveled from our back door to my grandmother's back door, and there was magic happening in those kitchens, truly magic. And this was where my culinary career began. They were my first culinary teachers. And then fast forward, I was 18, graduating from high school, going off to college. I met this wonderful man. He is the love of my life. And at 20, a very young bride, we married. I was plucked out of Pittsburgh, planted here in Chester County, and we grew our own family, and we are blessed with 3 wonderful daughters. And I have a couple of adopted ones as well along the way, because your friends become your family. Your circle of friends become your family. And I grew up that way. When my great-grandmother kissed me and pinched my cheeks, she would say, "God bless you." And she meant it. She felt it. We knew it. So we love you, every one of you. And when you come to our house, like Karaba says, you're family. So with that, my husband embraced his career, and my business was truly a mommy business. And some of the best, most enjoyable, happiest days of my life with my little women. And at that time, I cooked and entertained, read every cookbook I could get my hands on. And then in 1997, I made a decision to return to school to finish a degree. So I did, and as a prerequisite to graduation, we needed to write a research paper. I chose my topic as how to write a cookbook. Spent the next 2+ years in market research, writing, raising my family. Graduation arrives. I hand my nicely packaged paper to my professor. He looks at me and says, "That's wonderful, Cynthia, but where is your cookbook?" My chin dropped. I didn't know I was supposed to write a cookbook upon that delivery. He looked at me and said, "If you have not written that cookbook, in turn, with this research paper, you will never write it." The word never went through me like an electrical shock. If we think of the word never, it's an eternity. So what did I do? Charge! I wrote that cookbook, and I knew who I was going to call, and that was my grandmother. And I said, "Would you be willing to put this book together, capture our recipes for our next generation?" She wholeheartedly agreed. We did it, and she did not get to see the finished copy, but she knew that it would be complete. It is. And I'm here to tell you, spend quality time with your friends, with your family. I celebrated the last chapter in her life, so you don't know what your life purpose is. But get out there, make a difference. Food is a vehicle to connect people. Get out in your communities, but it starts at your own table. Fathers, mothers, get to know your children. Children, get to know your parents and appreciate every moment in your life. Thank you.
Definitely, that was a big woohoo moment in my life. And I'm here as me, with notes. I don't want to have a senior moment in front of you. The last 5 years of my life were spent fulfilling that dream, inspired by the legacies of the past. The legacy of 6 is dedicated to generations of strong women who have inspired and those who will inspire. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "What we have learned from others becomes our own reflection." I say, create generational legacies. Garner inspiration from the past, live that inspiration in the present, and inspire the future. When my eldest daughter, Amy, was born in 1975, 5 generations of women lived. My great-grandmother, Beulah, my mother, Patricia, my grandmother, Anna, my daughter, Amy, and I. In May 2009, just last year or so, Katie was born, the great-great-great-grandmother of Beulah. Katie represents the 6th in a generation and a lineage of strong, vibrant, intelligent women. In 2011, only 3 generations remain, but I remember vividly going into my great-grandmother's hospital room with Amy. She had waited to see her. And although her life was ending, she was determined to see her great-great-grandchild. 5 generations were present, sharing that moment in time. The moment was a unique and cherished gift. Your sunshine inspiration, fully live and cherish each moment. As I ponder that moment and the women who shared it, I think of the specific influence that each has had on me and the gifts they've offered me. The influences and inspirations are gifts to me. I take them as those gifts and I pass them then on to my children and now my grandchildren. The gifts given to me, my great-grandmother, grandmother, and mother are embodied in their persona, and they have become a part of me. Beulah offered the gift of determination, and Anna the gift of grace. My mother offered her intellect. Through those, I've taken those gifts and tried to live them the best of my ability. I have been inspired, and I, in turn, strive to inspire. I see in my daughter Amy's Beulah determination. Amy's gift is perseverance in the face of adversity. And I see in my granddaughter Katie the gift of wonder as she is inspired by the world and those who love her. The legacy of 6 is embodied in 6 strong women. The legacy of 6 is determination, inspiration, grace, intellect, perseverance, and wonder. Your sunshine inspiration, strive to inspire, and live your legacy. I'll share 2 stories from the legacy of 6. Check it out, my time here. First is Beulah. Beulah represents determination. I can see her, said my great-grandmother as we came into that room. Amy was only days old, and we 5 generations were gathered to celebrate a new life and a life well lived. Gammy, as we called her, was determined to see Amy, and she did. And she asked my grandmother several times as I was trying to give birth and all that. She says, when will Ann be here? I want to see her. Gammy was blind, and she saw her grandchild. She died at age 89 within the week of seeing Amy. Through her life, and in that moment, she was determined, and she expressed that to us. She was determined to see Amy. It was a joyous moment. I'll never forget it. The stories of a strong-willed Beulah were infamous. She, for example, was determined that her only daughter, Anna, would go to college. She believed in the American dream, and she wanted Anna to live a better life than she. She also knew the importance of education to her daughter's future. Anna graduated from Dickinson College and was the first of 4 generations of women to be graduated from college. Your sunshine inspiration, pursue your dreams, and never, never, never give up. Anna represents grace. I was so blessed to have her in my life, and she would live a graceful life. But now, as you read the legacy of 6, ponder the gifts of determination, grace, intellect, inspiration, and perseverance. I encourage you to draw on the gifts offered to you in the positive legacy of your past. Bask in the wonder of the world and express gratitude. Survive, thrive, and prevail in face of diversity. Use your intellect and act wisely. Be inspired, inspire generations, and live your legacy.
I'm Ann Murphy, and this is the first time I'm saying this out loud. I am a certified holistic health counselor. I just got my certification today in the mail. So that just hit me. But you are what you eat. Do you believe that? I didn't. And I was in bad shape quite a few years ago. And my body was falling apart. My health was failing. And I got to a point where I didn't even know if I wanted to live. And I can tell you that I'm proof that if you change your thoughts and decide you want something, that you can make it happen. And I didn't expect this. I grew up in an alcoholic family, and it wasn't a good place to be. And I didn't expect this to happen.
We love you, Ed.
It was very negative, and I grew up, and I faced my own addictions in my early 20s. And it took me to some dark places. And I was able, by changing my thoughts and what I did, I was able to change who I was. Fast forward to my 30s, I've got 3 children. I'm a homeschooling mom, and I'm sick. I actually told my husband after my 3rd daughter was born that if I had to live with this pain, I didn't want to go on. I ended up at a rheumatologist who told me I had fibromyalgia, and she gave me this list of medications that she was going to put me on. I had decided when I got clean that I was not taking anything. And I went home and I looked into the physician's desk reference, and I'm like, these drugs can kill me. Fibromyalgia makes me feel like I'm dying, but it's not going to kill me. I went to the rheumatologist and I said, look, this doesn't make sense to me. I started doing some research, and I'm going to change what I eat. I'm going to start eating organic, whole foods. She looked at me and she said, you're crazy if you think what you eat is going to help how you feel. And if you won't take the medications, I can't help you. I looked at her and I said, you're right, you can't help me, and I left. And I went home, and it started years of research on my part and experimenting. I used my body as an experimentation. I changed what I ate. I changed what I thought. I started some holistic modalities, and I'm better. I got myself better. About 8 years ago, I found this skincare product. It was botanical, so it fit right into what I was into, and I decided, I want to start this home-based business. I need to do something for me. I'm a homeschool mom, and I got busy in this business, and I learned that I had to live in fear. I had to step out of my comfort zone. I spent 7 years in my fear zone, and what happened was I built an incredible business, and I made a lot of money. A few years ago, I started having this pit in my stomach. I didn't feel good. And I realized I wasn't doing what I was supposed to do. And at that time, a friend of mine sent me a link to the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. It's a world-renowned holistic nutrition and health school. And I went online. I had been on their site before, and I got lost in this website. I could not believe just what I was reading, and I realized, oh my gosh, my hobby for the past 10 years is my passion. And by the end of the week, I was enrolled in that school. And I can tell you, it was the best decision I ever made. And I realized, okay, I'm in my late 40s now, and I'm starting over. And that scares me, but something comes back. I was at a chamber meeting a long time ago, and it was the Philadelphia Eagles minister was speaking, and he said something that has stuck with me. Start where you are and work with what you have. I've got years of knowledge. I've lived the fact that food changes everything. What I eat affects how I think, how I act, and how I feel. It affects everything. So I love that about my new work. I get to help people listen because our bodies talk to us. My body sends me messages that I never used to get, and that's why it was so sick. I get it now, and now I can help other people learn to listen to their bodies. So your body's talking to you. Are you listening? I hope you are, because every single one of you deserves an incredible life. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow. Those were some really amazing presentations. They were awesome, ladies. I'm very inspired by all of you, and I have to apologize right now because I am going to withdraw from this competition today. I simply just, I'm not as good as you. I'm not good enough. Okay, I'm kidding. Okay, but this was my life. I had this gremlin running around in my head like a drunk monkey who decided, to find any reason whatsoever that he could to decide when I wasn't enough, no matter what it was that I wanted to attempt. So living with this gremlin running around in my head that said I'm not enough had a really great cost. I didn't have any power. This belief of not enough had all my power. I was the judge and the jury, and the verdict was out. I would compare my worst, have you ever done this? I would compare my worst to someone else's best, and then I would determine that I just wasn't good enough. And demonstrating integrity was a really tough thing to do. I couldn't keep a commitment to anybody and could never keep one to myself. And this served as a really great distraction for me because I didn't ever have to play big, and no one would ever expect a thing from me. But there was one problem. I wanted to play big so badly. And these unfulfilled dreams that I had were really breaking my heart. I came across this song, and the words hit me. Do I have to fall asleep with roses in my hand? See, because when you're dreaming with a broken heart, waking up is the hardest part. And I heard that, and I thought, all I have to do is wake up to my greatness. But there's the catch. Waking up to my greatness would mean that I would have to love myself. And I'd have to see myself as beautiful as those roses. And you all know I wasn't good enough to do that. So I decided that waking up to your dream really is the hardest part. So how did I get out of my own way? Well, first, I took 100% responsibility for my thoughts. And that meant, and my 100% responsibility for my thoughts and what I focused on. This is huge. that also meant that I had to take 100% responsibility for my worthiness. Now let that rattle around in your head a little bit. This is a big concept. You take 100% responsibility for what you focus on, and then you focus on being worthy and enough. So I had to begin to tell a different story about myself and my life. So I heard these words. It was a prayer by Byron Katie. God grant me the desire. God saved me from the desire to be loved, approved, and appreciated. This is what she was saying, is you are enough already. Seeking that won't serve you. So I began to tell a new story, that I am loved and approved and appreciated. Another thing I did was I changed the questions that I asked myself, because I learned that your brain responds to questions. Ask yourself, why is the sky blue? Why is my life so difficult? Why do I have all these problems? Your brain's already starting to answer those questions. So I'm asking myself, why am I not good enough? And I'm getting all the reasons I'm not good enough. So I decided to change the question to why am I so fabulous? And why am I the most fabulous person to do this job? So play with this. Ask yourself, why can I? Seriously, it's a great question. Why can I? And then finally, I learned to take a stand for something that was bigger and bolder than myself. So I was able to let go of my not enough story long enough to see that my life might possibly have a positive impact on someone else's life. And so I found work that I was passionate about. And when I did that, my true greatness started to arise within. So to sum things up for you, and by the way, play with that, because it's a great place to stand in. When you're in a place where you're standing with passion, it's a beautiful space to be in. So to sum things up for you, I want to say that you are important, your dreams are important, and you're allowed to be important. And your steps are never small, and even your small steps are big. So I invite you to step into the truth of your own greatness, because you need to know that you are beautiful and unique and divine. If there is something in your heart that you desire to do, know that the gift of you is enough. Go do it. Because see, then, instead of holding the roses in your hand, you're releasing these roses into the hands of somebody who really needs your unique gift, your unique beauty, and your unique message. Shine on, my friends. That was the end.
Very well. Very good.
Whoom, whoom, whoom. Have you ever been scared by a big noise?
Yes.
Is this thing on? First time happened to me, I was this tall. At my first parade, it was the marching bands. And those mighty drums, whoom, whoom, whoom. Long after they left, I still felt that beat pulsing inside me. And then, like all kids, forgot about it. Until years later, as an adult, that inner drum beat started up again. And I knew what it meant. I was born to drum! Now I know that's odd since I was afraid of that sound. But I was bigger now. And the other thing, just imagine me tripping over this thing. Playing a drum set, where you got your arms and your legs doing 4 different things at once. It's the ultimate in multitasking. And in my head, I was awesome. Outside my head, probably needed lessons. That's when I saw the ad. Buy 4 music lessons, get a 5th free. What a deal! Give me the phone, I'm in. Picture that first lesson. There I am with those shiny black drums surrounding me. Got my teacher sitting next to me. He said, go ahead, give the bass pedal a kick. Whoom, whoom, whoom. I eased up on the pedal. Win, win. Still freaked me out, though. And when I'm nervous, my muscles tense up. So I'm holding my sticks. Well, of course they're pink. I'm a girl. I held them so tightly I could have made sawdust. When I hit the snare, though, tip, tip. Should have heard my teacher. Play louder for the love of God! Play louder! You won't break the drums. But what if I break me? What if I shatter under all that sound? I was 30 years old that day. And that was a scary situation. And I knew I had to decide. Because at all that time, I'd been living in a bubble of shyness, almost to the point of invisibility. And I was at a crossroads. If I go this way, it means I have to give up the drums and stay invisible, which is cozy, but boring. That way means poking through that bubble to the unknown. Scary. Boring, scary. Boring, scary. 3 things made me make up my mind. Number 1, I paid in advance for those lessons. Number 2, I really like the arms and the legs with the drums. Number 3, I paid in advance for those lessons. So I went back and I faced those drums. And each week, I got a little louder, a little braver, signed up for more lessons. Then I bought my own drum kit, set it up in my living room. Now, when I hit that bass pedal and felt that whoom, whoom, it charged me up. This was my joyful noise. It was such a joyful noise, it sounded like music. But ladies and gentlemen, that was the first empowering thing I'd ever done. Those drums taught me not only could I survive a booming sound, I could create one. The beat taught me something else. Face it and embrace it. Face it and embrace it. Sure, you've heard face your fear. But when you embrace your fear, it stops being a fear and becomes a friend. For me, those drums started out as a scary noise and became a joyful one. I've got a question for you. Do you have something in your life that you'd like to face and embrace? Well, let's help each other out. I want you to face each other, face a friend, and say, face it and embrace it. Go ahead. Face it and embrace it. Face it and embrace it. Awesome! That is great. Because here it comes. Whoom, whoom, whoom. That's the mighty drum beating inside you, reminding you. Face it and embrace it. Thank you.